Like, share, and subscribe to my channel as I continue to provide you with trusted information for you to use to make decisions. Illness is a difficult thing to deal with in the sense that it disturbs, distorts, and create problems for the psychology of the individual, especially when you were not born with that illness and you have to deal with the new reality of medication, of an adjusted lifestyle, and trying to adjust your psychology, your psyche, to deal with this new reality. I want to speak to you about diagnosed with diabetes. Some years ago, my son was diagnosed with diabetes. I remember the day it were yesterday. He was 6 years old, had just got accepted and was attending a primary school in Golden Spring. It was his first week of school. And I remember I got up one morning and my wife said to me, "Come on, pee the bed." He's a twin, right? And he peed the bed. So I went around there somewhat annoyed by it. I said, okay, 6-year-old boy be peeing the bed. When I went around there, he was extremely thin. And his eyes were perching out of his head as though it was a bulb on the outside. He had lost almost all his weight. And she prayed, as no Jamaicans would, prayed. And she said, "I'm going to be sending him to school now." And I said, something said to me, "No, let's take him to the doctor. Let's take him to children." And we brought him to children. When they did preliminary test, my son's sugar level could not be read. He was immediately rushed to medical ward at Children's Hospital. 6 years old, 2 days into school. Now, my son is that infectious person, and anywhere he goes, he's loved immediately because sort of person that he was and is. So we were trying to understand, what is this diabetes? At the time I was at the University of the West Indies working as a junior research fellow. I was trying to understand, what is this diabetes? My entire world was crumbling. And I remember after 2 days, it could not be read. 3 days, it could not be read. 4 days, it could not be read. And the doctors were there just confused as to what was going on. It took them about 2 weeks or a week and some days to get his blood reading, sugar level reading. And that time when it was read, it was 32.0. It took them another 1 week to get it to 24. And during that time, they were asking the question, "How are you alive?" And my son was walking up and down as though nothing was happening. They began putting on weight. He met a girl I was attending the same school at the time, but she was in grade 6. She was diagnosed with cancer, and she died about a month after my son. Then he met another friend, which is his age, that they were unable to determine the cause of her illness, and it was found later that she had cancer, and she cried to die, and she died after. After her death, my son became somewhat distant because they were good friends. They would walk, they would play together, both 6-year-olds. Took him a good while. In the ward that he was in was a medical ward, mostly people with cancer, diabetes, hypertension, children. 1-year old, 2-year old, 3-year old, 4-year old, up to 12 years old. And many of them were, on the average age, I would say, would be about 7 years old. Now, when he was released after about a month, I think. we, so children and other persons in the school were concerned, and rightfully so. And we made him aware what condition he had when he went back to school. I remember this day in particular that we sent him to the shop to go and buy something. We were trying to understand this diabetes thing. Sent him to the shop. When he came back, he went into a diabetic coma. And boy, I was crying. Brought him to children just in time. And that was about a week. I think it took him a week somewhere there before he was released. And it was an experience for me to try to understand. And of course, his mother tried to understand, what was happening to him. And sometimes we just could not seem to understand how to ensure that he was eating the right things. At 6 years old, he was eating the right thing, and he was going to school, and he would actually have things outside that to eat, and would actually have somebody at the school to ensure that he was getting proper meals. And sometimes even when you get the proper meal, it was just one of those chaotic experiences. I recall one day he was sent to school, and he came back, had this dazed look in his eyes. And I know when he has this dazed look in his eye, that his diabetes is uncontrolled, and we are going to be at a problematic stage in a short while. I knew from being with him over time what was going on. And I was trying to understand what was happening to him, and I just was unaware, was not told. I think a day or so after, his twin brother said to me, "Daddy, Kimani won an ice cream competition yesterday." And I said, "Ice cream?" "Yeah." Some children at his school bet him that he could not consume, I think, 2 cups of ice cream, and he exceeded that limit, went to 3 cups of ice cream. Kimani was out cold. He was brought to children, and it was sent to child services that was investigating me for neglect. And it took about a year and some days. And a matter of fact, before the end of the investigation, I remember calling. I had to go to Children's Hospital to be interviewed by medical doctors, nurses, nutritionist, social worker. They brought him to our room and gave him crayons for him to draw. Presume they were trying to actually establish that I was a neglectful father. At that time, his mother had moved out to go and live somewhere, presume. I don't know, but she had moved out. And it was a difficult experience for me trying to understand and how to manage this. And I had lost my job. And it was a tumultuous situation for me, to say the least. But while I was going through that situation, I was trying to understand my son as well and deal with my son to ensure that my son is healthy. And I spoke to him and said to him, "Brother, you're not supposed to have an ice cream. And to be having 3 cups of ice cream, man, come on, brother, why are you doing with this?" He was a young boy at the time, child, understanding what he was going through, then knowing fully well that his brother could actually eat just about anything. And he was diagnosed at 6, knowing fully well that he was living a life before 6 years old. So I called a police officer at the time and said to him, "I'm being investigated for child neglect. Does that mean I'll go to jail, and does that mean I'll take him away?" And he asked me what transpired, and I told him, and he said, "No. No police will actually come to arrest you for your child going to school and having ice cream. How could you protect a child at school? And is that neglect from a teacher? Is that neglect from a parent?" And he said, "Oh, absolutely not a police matter for any police to come and arrest me." And I felt good about that. After about a year, I got a call from child development agent to say, "You are free from any liability, you're free from any accusation, you're free from any neglect. We are sorry for what transpired, but however, we had to investigate." And that was a good turning point for me. A number of occasions, my son went into diabetic coma, and I had to rush him from various places to get him to Children's Hospital. I cry many times just to understand what this diabetes thing was. And ever since then, I have gotten myself to a stage where I watch my diet. I watch the fact that I exercise. I try to exercise every morning. I watch what I eat, I watch what I don't eat. I wasn't a drinker, I wasn't a smoker, I wasn't a gambler prior to my son being diagnosed with diabetes. And even now, I don't participate much in those things. When I say participate much in those things, if any, I may have a Malta, I may have a rum cream, I may have a little wine, maybe once every 6 months or a year. I try not to indulge in those things. I never usually do before that, and try really to do it thereafter. No, but what am I saying about this diabetes? Diabetes is difficult for anyone to deal with, and it is a medical condition. So, non-communicable disease, a medical condition that kills almost 1 in every 4 Jamaican yearly. And those who are diagnosed and have diabetes have a difficult job to balance both their diabetes and deal with their situation in terms of life. And sometimes when they eat, it does not seem that whatever they are consuming is monitored effectively and can be monitored and managed properly. So that was a difficult task for me to try to understand how to deal with somebody who was diagnosed with diabetes. I was able to manage. My son is currently 21 years old, and I think we are doing a pretty good job of it today compared to when he started, when he was initially diagnosed. I'm saying to those persons with diabetes, try to manage your diabetes properly. You know, sometimes a difficult thing because sometimes you want a little ice cream, you want a little thing, but then the Bible tells you that you ought to be controlled a little of everything. And I think a part of the issue with a number of Jamaicans that we want to consume a bulk of things at once and not seem to understand that our body is monitoring all the things that we consume into various portions. And sometimes the portion that we actually consume, particularly of carbohydrates, are always not understood by many persons because carbohydrates also convert to sugar. And when you actually consume other items which are sugar, what you do is to spike your diabetes and therefore create problem for other organs. And I'm saying to persons, as I said before, who are diabetic patients, pre-diabetic patients, and trying to deal with this new reality, life is worth living. And therefore, I'm saying manage your situation, manage your illness as effective as you are able to, and not be carried away and let us lose you because you did not manage your situation well. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel as I continue to provide with trust information to use to make decision. I'm saying let's be careful of what we eat because diabetes, like many other non-communicable diseases, is not a player. A matter of fact, they are diabetes and hypertension, silent killers. So be careful. Be careful of what you do. Manage your health. And by managing your health, you manage your life. That is longevity, quality, and continued survival. Diabetes. Diabetes. Manage your health, or it will destroy you.